Neither one of us wants to go back. I don't think that would happen again. It wouldn't happen. And Rick's dead. We can't go back there.
Viewers, who would have thought that a music legend, now approaching 8 decades of life, would finally reveal the darker side behind his long career? David Gilmour, the iconic guitarist of Pink Floyd, known for his calm demeanor and rare involvement in controversies, has stunned the public by naming 6 musicians he claimed to hate the most. Imagine this, a maestro who usually chooses his words carefully suddenly drops a list of names full of shockers, some of them being household names in the rock world. Music reporters across the globe instantly erupted, calling this a rare moment, like watching a classical virtuoso suddenly smash his violin and scream in the middle of a concert. The big question is, what drove Gilmour to such anger that he didn't hesitate to make these bold statements? And who exactly made it onto his blacklist? The answers go far beyond simple gossip. They reflect the long journey of an artist who once stood at the very top of the music world, yet also endured bitter conflicts, egos, and betrayals. But before we dig into the surprising names one by one, let's first look at who David Gilmour really is, and why every word he utters still manages to shake the world to this very day. David Gilmour's name is inseparable from the story of Pink Floyd, one of the most influential rock bands of all time. Born in Cambridge in 1946, he joined the group in 1968 at a critical turning point, stepping in just as original frontman Syd Barrett was slipping away due to personal struggles. From that moment, Gilmour's guitar tones, ethereal, emotional, instantly recognizable, became the heartbeat of Pink Floyd's sound. Think of soaring solos in Comfortably Numb, or the haunting atmosphere of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. These weren't just songs, they were cultural milestones. Beyond his technical brilliance, Gilmour cultivated an image of restraint, rarely feeding the press with headline-grabbing quotes or feuds. Unlike many rock stars of his generation who thrived on scandal, he often projected calm, almost like the steady hand guiding a storm-tossed ship. That makes his new revelation even more startling. This isn't a man known for vendettas or name-calling, which means if he's finally opening up about the musicians he despises, there's a story behind each name. And when you consider his history with long-standing rivalries, most famously with former bandmate Roger Waters, it's clear that Gilmour's words carry weight not just as gossip, but as a window into decades of tension in the rock world. Yet even with his legendary past, what does hate really mean when it comes from David Gilmour's lips? That's where the story takes an even more intriguing turn. When David Gilmour uses the word hate, it isn't always as simple as disliking someone's music or personality. It often reflects deeper artistic clashes, personal betrayals, or ideological divides that have brewed for decades. For much of his career, Gilmour was the picture of composure, rarely engaging in public mudslinging. Yet even the calmest figures in rock carry scars. His famously strained relationship with Roger Waters showed how creative partnerships can spiral into power struggles, lawsuits, and decades of icy silence. In that sense, hate in Gilmour's world often means disappointment with someone he once respected, or frustration with musicians who, in his view, let ego eclipse the music itself. Over time, he's hinted at his distaste for performers who turn art into theater, who value shock value over sincerity, or who reduce music to spectacle instead of substance. Fans often wonder, is this bitterness or brutal honesty? At 79, Gilmour no longer needs to soften his words for the industry, and his choices reveal more than petty dislike. They're glimpses into the standards he's carried as a musician, and the frustrations he's endured watching others break them. And with that context, the first 2 names on his most hated list are nothing short of jaw-dropping. The first 2 names on David Gilmour's notorious list sent shockwaves through fans and critics alike because they weren't obscure acts or easy targets, they were towering figures in rock history. According to insiders close to the revelation, one of the names Gilmour singled out was Axl Rose, frontman of Guns N' Roses. The clash here is less about technical talent and more about philosophy. Where Gilmour built his career on precision, emotional depth, and subtlety, Rose became the face of excess, chaos, and tabloid drama. Gilmour reportedly dismissed Rose's antics as a kind of circus that cheapened the integrity of rock music, comparing it to fireworks that light up the sky but fade without substance. The second shocker was Elton John, a name that no one expected to appear. Both men shared the British stage in overlapping eras, but their styles could not have been further apart. While Elton embraced flamboyance, costumes, and showmanship, Gilmour always leaned toward authenticity and understatement. Sources suggest that Gilmour bristled at how Elton's theatrical persona sometimes overshadowed the music itself, turning concerts into Broadway-level productions rather than moments of raw connection. Whether one agrees with his assessment or not, these names immediately set the tone. Gilmour wasn't afraid to criticize giants, even ones revered worldwide. And if these opening shots shocked fans, the next names on his list would only deepen the drama, exposing just how far his disdain really stretched. If the first two names raised eyebrows, the next two practically ignited debates across the music press. The third name Gilmour reportedly included was Madonna, a global icon whose career has thrived on reinvention and spectacle. To Gilmour, however, Madonna symbolized everything he disdained about the commercialization of music. While millions admired her for pushing boundaries, Gilmour allegedly saw it as gimmickry, a strategy to place image and controversy above genuine artistry. In interviews over the years, he's hinted at his distaste for performers who chase headlines more than harmony, and Madonna became the embodiment of that critique. The fourth entry was Eric Clapton, and this revelation stunned even veteran rock journalists, since the two guitarists share a place in the pantheon of British rock legends. Yet behind the scenes, their relationship has always been complicated. Both came from the same 1960s blues explosion, but Gilmour reportedly felt that Clapton's later years drifted into complacency, leaning too heavily on reputation rather than innovation. Adding fuel to the fire were Clapton's recent controversial public statements, which alienated many in the music community, Gilmour included. These middle names painted a clearer picture. Gilmour's hate wasn't random. It was rooted in a deep frustration with artists who, in his eyes, betrayed either the purity of music or the responsibility that comes with influence. But the final two names on his list would escalate things even further, because they weren't just critiques of style. They were outright rejections of figures who shaped entire eras. The last two names on David Gilmour's list turned murmurs of surprise into a full-blown storm, because these weren't just pop stars or rock showmen. They were titans whose legacies shaped generations. The fifth name was Kanye West, a figure whose influence on modern music is undeniable, but whose controversies often overshadow his artistry. Gilmour reportedly blasted Kanye as the ultimate example of ego overtaking substance, describing his approach to performance as a spectacle in search of a soul. For Gilmour, whose career was defined by channeling raw emotion into soundscapes, Kanye's grandstanding felt hollow, a betrayal of what music should represent. But the final name, the sixth, cut even deeper into rock's own mythology, Roger Waters. While many suspected their decades-long feud had cooled, Gilmour's decision to put Waters on this list confirmed the rift still burns. Their history is legendary, creative brilliance intertwined with lawsuits, personal attacks, and icy separations. By naming Waters outright, Gilmour essentially cemented what fans had long whispered, that their partnership produced magic, but also scars that never healed. To call Waters one of the musicians he hated most wasn't a cheap insult. It was the raw admission of a wound that has lingered since Pink Floyd's Fracture. With these final revelations, Gilmour's list wasn't just gossip fodder. It was a manifesto exposing the tensions, principles, and grudges that define both his career and his vision of music itself. Looking at David Gilmour's 6 most hated names side by side, a clear pattern emerges, one that says more about him than about the musicians themselves. The list spans multiple generations and genres. Axl Rose from the wild excess of late 80s rock, Elton John and Eric Clapton from the classic rock elite, Madonna as the queen of pop spectacle, Kanye West as a polarizing face of modern fame, and Roger Waters as the eternal ghost of his own past. On the surface, they seem disconnected, but the thread tying them together is Gilmour's disdain for ego overshadowing artistry. Each of these figures in their own way represents either flamboyance, controversy, or self-promotion taken to extremes, traits Gilmour has spent a lifetime rejecting. While others chase headlines, he chased melodies. While they leaned into spectacle, he leaned into emotion. Even his feud with Waters, arguably the most personal, underscores that belief for Gilmour. Music should serve the song, not the individual. This pattern reveals why even in his late 70s, he still speaks with such conviction. Gilmour isn't just airing grievances. He's drawing a line between the music he believes in and the industry circus he's watched unfold around him. And whether fans agree with his picks or not, the statement is unmistakable. At this stage of his life, David Gilmour cares less about diplomacy and more about telling the truth as he sees it. But this raises one final question. What does this reveal about his legacy today, and why does it still matter? At 79 years old, David Gilmour has nothing left to prove. His place in rock history is secure, his guitar work immortalized, his influence undeniable. And yet, by finally naming the 6 musicians he claimed to hate most, Axl Rose, Elton John, Madonna, Eric Clapton, Kanye West, and Roger Waters, he has done something far more provocative than releasing another album. He's opened a window into his own values, his frustrations, and the scars left behind after a lifetime in music. To some, the list feels harsh, even unfair. After all, these figures are legends in their own right. But to others, it's refreshing honesty from a man who has always been guarded, a reminder that even icons harbor grudges, disappointments, and unshakable opinions. More than just gossip, Gilmour's words force us to reflect on the eternal tension between art and ego, authenticity and spectacle, creation and performance. And perhaps that is his final message, that music at its core should never be about the fireworks, the costumes, or the scandals. It should be about the sound that reaches your soul. Whether fans agree with his list or not, one thing is certain. David Gilmour's voice, both in music and in opinion, still has the power to stir conversation, ignite debate, and remind us why he remains one of rock's most fascinating figures.